Good morning, everybody. Oliver Joyce here from Whiskey Barrel Studios, and welcome to Spartacus Game Dev Update number 16. It's been about 3 weeks since the last update, and this one will probably be the last of the developer video logs because I'm in the home stretch for the game. I plan to launch in end of next month, and I'm really in crunch time. That's why there hasn't been that many updates lately. But I've got a few things to show you today. It won't be a very big devlog, but there's some interesting stuff to do with the Underworld, which I'd like to show you. As always, if you are planning on playing this game spoiler free, turn off now because you're going to see some stuff that might spoil some of the content of the game for you. So without further ado, let's jump into Unity and check out some of Spartacus. Alright, so yeah, I've been working on this game pretty much for most of the year. I started, I think, in maybe the end of January, and I was also doing a bunch of Unity tutorials and things at that time, so I started quite slowly. And I took a bit of a break off in March to do the Swords and Sandals Classic collection. But I mean, it's roughly nearly a year that this game has been in development, and that's long enough, I think, for a game like this. But what I want to show you is a few things today. I've built the little logo introductions thing, which is, you see at the beginning of all these Whiskey Barrel games. We run that. It's just the E-Games logo fades in. Whiskey Barrels then. And there's our logo. I'll mute that. So that's a nice simple thing. I actually do a lot of these via code. In fact, I do a lot of the cinematic stuff via code by tweening stuff. I know you can use the Unity animator, but I almost just prefer to do it by using tweens and so on. I'll show you the main menu. The computer's running a little slow this morning. Main menu, here we go. So the main menu is actually made up of a bunch of layers. So if you can see here, you've got your game logo. You've got the background sprite, which is this one here. You can see that one doesn't have much detail over here because there's actually a foreground image that's layered over the top of that. And foreground sprite here and a layer above. I love this one. It's done by an awesome Brazilian artist called Zeb, who did an awesome job on it. He's a comic book artist, and I just love the detail on Spartacus himself. And there's a cool Roman soldier that he's fighting against. But that appears on top of that, and then above that we have some chains, which are actually these things here. And if you watch, I still haven't quite nailed the timing of this, but if you watch the introduction, you'll see this. See, they'll fade in one after the other at slightly different speeds, and this creates that sort of nice bit of depth to it. I want to add maybe some flying ember particles or something on there, which would be kind of cool. So that's our actually, one thing I'll show you that again. Spartacus. When you start game, you've got a bunch of options here now. Most of the game is complete. I've got all the menus and everything working. Loading and saving is in there now, thanks to a great developer I've been working with in New York called Stefan Hoban, who he has done some wonderful work on just getting the things that I haven't been able to get done in time sorted. So he's been a great help for me. So a big shout out to you if you're watching, Stephen. And if you go, you can load games now. You've got 3 save slots there. They're all used at the moment, but you can overwrite them. Got credits page and so on. Casual mode is basically unlimited lives. Classic is 9 lives. Hardcore is 3. And permadeath is just 1 life. I'm going to add some little bits of text in there to tell you what they actually mean. And then you just choose a save slot. Save over old game, whatever. Sure. The main thing I wanted to show you today, though, is in fact the Underworld scenes. So as you can see here, this is a typical level from the game. This is the second level in the game. you know, it's, you know, fairly sizable. This is one of the smaller levels in the game. There's actually a bunch of levels that are a fair bit bigger than this. But this is the first level you see once you escape the ludus itself. And it has a nighttime filter on it. You've got this post-processing volume. Post-processing is really good because you can add things like your bloom and screen shaking and slight color grading and so on. I did another video about that earlier, so check that out. But at the moment, each level has either got a daytime or a nighttime post-processing on it. But what I added for this one, there's post-processing up there. It's really cool. What I also added to this is an Underworld one. So if you look at this as it is, you can see the nighttime layer there. And, you know, you've got the nice bloom around it and everything, Streets of Capua. And your torches glow yellow and everything. Here's a regular level. There's a guy. One soldier there. Some pillars and a... Get in there. Get in the water. Crush. Those guys can block, so you gotta get behind them. Sometimes they can be a bit tricky. Let's use some combinations. Wow. It's rare that you see him block so much. Get out. There you go. He's normally an easy enemy. Anyway, we get to that guy. Go now, you're free. But once you've gone through the game, spoilers here for anyone, you end up in the Underworld. And what you have to do there is go through all the levels again, but in much tougher versions, as Spartacus journeys through sort of undeath, basically. And the Underworld is another layer in the level that if I turn it on, it adds things like this Hellhound, new enemy. There's lots of new enemies in the Underworld, specific to the Underworld, like ghosts and burning ghouls and undead soldiers and that kind of thing. It adds more troops and spike traps and stuff like that. Pendulum traps. So zoom out, you can kind of see the difference there. Underworld, there's another Hellhound up here, two Hellhounds up there that weren't there before. And I've been going through each level at the moment and just basically adding in the tougher traps and things. And it really changes how you play the level, because in the beginning of the game, you can kind of race through and be pretty loose and free with how you play the game. But when you get to the Underworld, that's much harder to do, and it's much more methodical and cautious gameplay, which is really kind of interesting variation on it. So what I'm going to do now is I'll turn on the Underworld, set that to true for testing purposes. Now watch what happens here. The first thing we're going to see is the post-processing filter kicking in. And that adds a blue and green tint to everything. The torches themselves glow blue now, which is pretty cool. And the sky appears blue. Some levels actually have different backgrounds in the Underworld, like graveyards and different colored mountains and things. Here's the new Hellhound enemy. These guys are actually pretty tough. They're like larger versions of those dogs that I might have shown you in an earlier video. And this first one you can actually trick though, because they're still a bit stupid. You can trick them into jumping into the water. So watch this. In you go, you mutt. Enemies are all a little bit tough. They've got more health, but then by the time you get there, you've got a lot more health and you've updated your shield and your sword and that kind of thing. Those spikes weren't there before. There are more of these enemies now, which are a bit tough. You know, run past them. Oh, landed on the spikes, nasty. So run past that. For some reason, the Hellhound hasn't respawned. He's supposed to, but whoa, it's a bit tough. Oh crap! But yeah, it's much tougher. So the Underworld itself is made up of the same amount of levels as the original, but it has much more challenge to it, and I think it effectively doubles the length of the game, but in an interesting way. And this is not something completely unique to Spartacus. I took inspiration from Ghouls and Ghosts originally, which where you'd go through the game and then you'd go back and do it again, but with a more powerful enemy and more... I think there are more opponents and more foes in the Ghouls and Ghosts. Also, the Super Meat Boy had sort of like dark world versions of each level as well, which that inspired me to add extra traps and so on. And you've seen it in a bunch of different games, and it's one of those things that some people think is a cheap tactic, but other people appreciate, because it can be hard to make a platform game that lasts for a long time, and you want people to get some value out of the game. And so I feel like this is a good way of lengthening the game, adding extra challenge, and also continuing the story, because the story continues through Underworld with new bits of dialogue, some new people to meet, and that kind of thing. And I think that is a fun addition to the game. So there we are. That's it for today's possibly final devlog. There might be one after this where I just sort of sum everything up. But thank you for joining me today, and this game will be out before Christmas. I can't believe it. I'm excited finally to have it ready and then get it out to the world. So I'll see you soon. Bye for now.